It's time for another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss local and national sports from Southeast Missouri and beyond. And now, without further ado, let's get on with the show. And welcome to another exciting edition of the Sports Desk. This is Mike Bueller.
This is Mark Sanders.
And yours truly, Kyle Roberts.
And we have got a full show today as we do our last show before Christmas. We are going to be talking about the Christmas tournaments that are going on right now and starting tomorrow and next week. We're going to talk a little bit about the Raiders and Lady Raiders. But as usual, we are going to first start off by talking about the National Football League. And Mark, that's yours.
I'll tell you what, this is a really exciting time of year. We've got 3 games left in the regular season, and we're getting to the point where, except for the worst of the bottom feeders, every game counts. And we are getting into Saturday may be the greatest day of football of 2024 because we have college football playoff games along with 2 really extraordinary games on the NFL slate. We've got the Houston Texans traveling to Kansas City, and the question on everybody's mind is, what are the Chiefs? Are the Chiefs for real? Are they a fraud? Are they do they still have the champion will in them? I'm really wondering, and this is a legitimate question, whether Kansas City is intentionally tanking these games to increase their level of difficulty just so that they can get in shape for the playoffs. I would not put it past them.
You know what? You remember the scene in The Empire Strikes Back where Darth Vader choked Admiral Ozzy, basically just held his 2 fingers together, and it's like, "You have failed me for the last time, Admiral." That's Taylor Swift standing on the Chiefs sideline doing that to opposing teams.
Gorilla Monson, will you stop?
Oh my gosh! I was thinking of that scene early on in The Princess Bride where Inigo Montoya is sword fighting with Wesley, disguised in his pirate costume, and says, "I know something you don't know. I am not left-handed." And he switches to his right hand, and I'm wondering if that's the way the Chiefs are playing. We'll see. Houston's been up and down this season. They're not as good as they were last season. I think I wouldn't say that Stroud is in a sophomore slump. But, it's the second year in the NFL. Opposing defenses have a whole year of tape to work with him. So, Kansas City handled Cleveland pretty easily last week. It wasn't really that close of a game, and they still didn't get any credit. I mean, it's hard to say that the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs don't get any respect, but they're not really getting a whole lot of respect. They are 13-1.
Yeah.
They are the 2-time repeating Super Bowl champions, and they're not getting any respect.
None. A lot of it has to do with the eye test. Think about it. These guys are 13-1, and they have not scored 30 points once this year.
Well, but the whole concept of the eye test is something that was invented by sports pundits. The only test that matters is the final score. And so far this season, they've been on the winning side of that 13 times. Of course, the one time they were on the losing side is on the team that's going to beat them in the playoffs, and that's Buffalo. I'm not backing off of that. I don't blame you whatsoever. Josh Allen's my MVP this year.
I've always been of the belief it's either going to be them or the Baltimore Ravens because this Derrick Henry isn't week 1, new offense, new personnel Derrick Henry. He's back to King Henry.
Well, let's see if he can prove it this week at home against Pittsburgh, a rematch of the blood feud from early on in this season. This is always the ugliest, dirtiest, nastiest hate fest in the NFL. I just love how these two teams hate each other. How at the end of a football game, the final whistle goes off and everything, and then the two teams are shaking hands and hugging each other. I never expect to see that with Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I expect to see a knife fight break out at midfield after one of their games. Pittsburgh really underwhelmed me last week against Philadelphia. But Baltimore has also underachieved, and they still have a terrible defense. So we'll see how that goes. Looking at our Sunday slate of games, Minnesota tremendously controls its own destiny. All they have to do is win their next 3 games in a row, on the road at Seattle, at home against Green Bay, and then on the road against Detroit. So no problem, right?
They're the Vikings, guys.
Yeah, it's, by all ways of looking at the game, Minnesota should take this game pretty easily, but weird stuff happens to us in Seattle.
Blair Walsh.
Oh, Lord. It haunts my dreams to this day. But we don't know how banged up Geno Smith is. He's on the injury report, but they say he's going to start. How mobile will he be? Will Minnesota's blitz be able to get to him? And if we do, how healthy is that knee? And, the X factor for the Vikings is always Sam Darnold. Are we going to get good Sam Darnold or evil Sam Darnold? It's just, you never know about that. So, I am always hopeful for a Minnesota win, but I would not be surprised if bad things happen and they get edged out at Seattle. It's just the way things go. The way the schedule goes when it comes to playoff seeding always leads us to, some strange tangential rooting interests. So I'm actually going to be cheering, for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets to upset the visiting, Los Angeles Rams, because I don't want to have anything to do with the Rams in the playoffs.
And we know how much you love the Rams.
You really shouldn't.
No, the Rams at SoFi with Stafford throwing to Kupp and Nakua. I mean, it's like they can literally beat any other team in the NFC, including Minnesota, including Philadelphia, including Detroit. Now, granted, those, if the Rams make it to the playoffs and they end up having to play Detroit or Philadelphia, those will be road games. Now, Detroit, I think, would be easier for the Rams because that's going to be indoors. Philly presents a problem for anybody, but I'm telling you that Rams offense, when it's working, is terrifying because it's absolutely unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. Now, and also not to forget Kyrie Williams. He's one of the top running backs in the league that never gets talked about, and a young defense that continues to improve. Yeah. And I think Sean McVay is the best X's and O's head coach in the game.
Well, and I have to agree with you in that. I want to say Kevin O'Connell, and I do think Kevin O'Connell will win Coach of the Year for the work that he's done in resurrecting Sam Darnold's career. But, I mean, O'Connell is a McVay disciple, so... it's to use your Star Wars thing. It's like, until the Padawan defeats the master, you cannot take your seat on the Jedi Council.
Yes.
Speaking of Philly, they're going to Washington, and we'll see. Philadelphia is on like an 11-game winning streak now. So we'll see if Washington can upset them. We'll see if Jaden Daniels can get back to that earlier Rookie of the Year form. And, he's still got a chance at Rookie of the Year since Bo Nix coughed up a hairball Thursday night against the LA Chargers. Did either one of you know that if you called a fair catch that you could do a free kick after that?
I might have heard of it. If I did, I forgot it.
That was insane.
Say that again, Kyle.
I said, that was insane. I never knew that.
No, I had no idea that was a rule. I saw the highlight. I'm like, what in the world is going on here?
That was nuts.
Yeah. The Giants, who are competing for the worst team, not just of this year, but maybe the worst team of the 21st century. This is a terrible, terrible football team. And they're going to Atlanta, who's going to be led by Michael Penix Jr. after
How about
Kirk
it?
Cousins gets the hook. Don't feel sorry for Kirk. He's laughing all the way to the bank. I wonder how Atlanta fans feel about that $100 million guaranteed contract that's going to be a big, fat, dead money cap hit on their roster next season.
Well, this reminds me of a conversation we were having earlier about how Philly fans have been known to throw batteries at people and throw snowballs at Santa Claus. I wonder if the Falcons fans may start doing that to Kirk Cousins.
Oh, who knows what they'll throw. Speaking of a team that needs things thrown at them, Tennessee is traveling to Indianapolis to lose another game.
That's right. And you know what? I can say I've got to say this to my fellow Titans fans. I have a prediction for Sunday. In the words of Clubber Lang, pay.
Yeah, that's going to be an ugly
Y'all
game.
stink.
Yeah, it's just, ugh. You know, we're going to talk at some point about the concept of relegation. If you're not a fan of European soccer, relegation is when the worst team in the league has to go down a level and play at a lower league, and I would love to see that in the NFL.
Well, you know what? The way that we're playing this year, the Tennessee Little People would very well be demoted to playing FBS college football next year and be replaced by the national champion from the CFP. We would get to be in the SEC and see if we could actually beat the Tennessee Volunteers. The way we're playing right now, I wouldn't want to bet too much on it.
Well, you know, that gets talked about a lot, but the reality is the worst pro team would absolutely destroy the college national championship. It's a completely different game, but it's fun to think about, especially when your team stinks as bad as yours does, Mike.
Yeah, it's, let me put it this way. I would say we're dog poop. No, we're worse. We're something that smells even worse. Cat poop.
Chicken poop, even.
Yes.
That's worse. That's worse than a cat
On
box.
the sports desk, a discussion of how to correlate a sports team to fecal matter.
Yes.
That's what happens when you have a bad team, Kyle.
Yeah, speaking
I
of
was a Rams fan. I remember 1-15 in 2009.
oh
I've been-
yeah, speaking of fecal matter, the Bears are hosting the Lions.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
Yes, and we thought that they were terrible, and they are. Another terrible team, I love saying this, the terrible, awful, no good, very bad New England Patriots are traveling to Western New York to get stomped on by the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to enjoy every minute of that. San Francisco is going to be at Miami, two teams that are 6-8 and still mathematically in the hunt for a possible playoff berth, but you just look at those rosters and you think, how could that ever happen? Tampa Bay, currently leading the NFC South, is going to Dallas, and Dallas is showing signs of life. They've won their last 3 in a row after everyone had written them off for dead once Dak Prescott got injured. Dallas is still mathematically eligible to possibly make the playoffs. It's like we've fallen into an alternate dimension.
That's because they're America's team. They're
Yuck.
America's team.
Yuck.
Now, Sam, and I hate to burst your bubble a little bit, but having watched a lot of the Patriots this year, Drake May is making the most with the least. He doesn't look out of place. He just doesn't have a lot of support. So as much as folks ain't going to like it, they're not too far away from turning into a little something, nothing Foxborough.
Oh,
Sorry.
I completely agree with you. Drake May was the quarterback that the Vikings most wanted out of last year's draft. Now, I absolutely believe that they're thrilled to have J.J. McCarthy. I have every reason to believe that no matter what Sam Darnold does with the rest of this season, that J.J. is going to be the week 1 starter, assuming that he's healthy and can come back from that knee injury. It's a minor knee injury. A meniscus is not a big thing. I've had both of my meniscus cartilages removed from each knee, and I can still run a 5K at 56 years old. So
Nice.
JJ's going to be fine. The Monday night game probably won't be that competitive. It's going to be New Orleans at Green Bay.
The Festivus Special.
Yeah, but you know, New Orleans is just one of those teams where it's like Forrest Gump's mythical box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, New Orleans can just rise up and surprise you. I mean, except for a 2-point conversion, they almost won that game against Washington last week. So who knows? And I always enjoy seeing Green Bay lose, especially when they lose at home. So that is our lineup for the NFL. A lot of great games, and it should clarify several points depending on the outcomes in terms of playoff seeding and who's going to be in the big tournament. And then again, it may not. If all of the teams who are in the running for top seeds and playoff spots continue to win and continue to play well, that will extend the suspense on through Christmas and into January. And that's what makes the NFL America's greatest sports pastime.
Abso-fraggin-lutely. And we are going to be switching segments in just a minute, but before we do, I want to tell you that the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle is presented to you by Royal Retros. They make some of the coolest retro jerseys you will find. I have several of them. If you see me wearing a throwback jersey, chances are I bought it from Royal Retros. And if you order from them with the code SportsDesk, all one word, you can get a little bit off your jersey when you buy from them too.
Sounds great.
And now we are going to be talking a little bit about Christmas tournaments. And Mark, I'm going to lead off by asking you to tell me about one you've been at all this week, the Clarkton Christmas Tournament.
Yeah, down in Clarkton, which if you're not familiar with southeast Missouri, Clarkton is essentially in the same general area as Malden and Campbell. It's not too far away from Kennett and Portageville. And if you're not from Missouri, it's down in the Boot Heel, that little weird thing down there. But the championship game down at the Clarkton Christmas Tourney is going to be tonight. It looks at the Doniphan Dons, who had an impressive win last night over the East Carter Redbirds to win their semifinal match. They'll be taking on the Risco Tigers. Risco is the number 1 seed. They got a bye in the first round, and then they handily dispatched the Portageville Bulldogs last night. So that should be a really good match. I've been impressed with the work that Doniphan's head coach Hunter Dilbeck has been doing with the team. He's got their record up to 5-3. The team continues to improve with their offense. They were really effective shooting last night. That's something that they've struggled with early on in the season, and they play a really fierce style of defense. It looks on the surface like a 3-2 zone, but when the ball goes out on the wings, the front men double team, and sometimes one of the back men will come up and triple team those guys on the wings. And opponents have found it really difficult to penetrate that defense. They don't get clear looks from three always, and it's been really effective on the defensive end for Doniphan. And they're going to need it against Risco. Risco is 5-1 this season. And so that should be a good matchup. Before that, we're going to have the third place game featuring the aforementioned Portageville Bulldogs taking on the East Carter Redbirds. And then opening up the tourney tonight is the fifth place consolation game, and that's going to be Greenville, who just lost in a heartbreaker to Portageville on the opening night of the tournament with a three-pointer that went in with just 4 seconds left in the game. And so they're going to be taking on host Clarkton, who got their first win last night by defeating North Pemiscot. So it should be a fun night of basketball. So if you're in the area, come on by and see some really good high school teams. Should be very competitive, fast-paced, and fun tonight.
It's a good deal. Yeah, and Mark, I think you've been having a lot of fun down there. I think it's going to be a good night of ball. And the thing is, it is the appetizer to what's coming up after that, because we have our first big, as in when I say big, bigger than 8 team holiday tournament starting tomorrow afternoon down at Twin Rivers, the Lady Royals Christmas Classic. This is the 27th annual Lady Royals Christmas Classic. And they got 14 teams in it this year. A lot of good teams in it, but leading the way are the Doniphan Donettes. They beat the second-seeded Neelyville Lady Tigers by 28 points earlier this season. So I think it's pretty safe to say this is Doniphan's tournament to lose, and that's probably an understatement.
I mean, when you're talking about girls basketball in Southeast Missouri, at least in Doniphan's class and district, I mean, yeah, it's the Donettes. The Donettes went undefeated last year, and just they lost a heartbreaker just by a point to Notre Dame, who won the district and then went on to get immediately eliminated in the state sectionals. But they had that undefeated season last year. They only lost one starter to graduation last season. So the rest of that team that went undefeated last season is still intact. And a couple of Adam Epps' leading scorers down there were freshmen last year. So they're just sophomores. So they're going to be formidable for the next several years. And talking with Adam earlier this season, they're very much like the Lady Raiders are on the collegiate level, where it is championship or bust this year. Just having a good season and making it to the postseason is not good enough. They want to end things on top this year.
And they got a chance to do it. And, there's several other local teams in that tournament. Poplar Bluff Lady Mules have joined that tournament in recent years. They have had a pretty nice season this year. Entering last night's game at Notre Dame, they were 5-2, which is only 2 games less than they won all of last year. They're the 5 seed down there, and they could very well, if they beat Holcomb tomorrow and then get their second round game, could be playing Doniphan in the semifinals next Friday. I mean, and you never know what could happen.
One of the fun things about these Christmas tournaments is that you get to see a lot of regional rivalries that you don't always see during the regular season, because these are different classifications of teams in terms of size. Poplar Bluff is class 5. Holcomb is class 2.
Yeah.
So you get to see some teams play some other teams. You get a lot of David and Goliath matchups that you don't always get during the regular season. It's one of the things that makes these tournaments so popular.
Agreed. And then starting next Thursday, we'll have the Bloomfield Christmas tournament, and I think me and you both are going to be at that at various points. Number 1 seed at that tournament's Puxico. They're off to a really good start this year. I've got to see them play. They played Clearwater, and they absolutely jumped all over Clearwater when I saw them play. I mean, I was very impressed. Puxico also has a win over defending Class 1 state champion Chadwick. And other than that game, which was close, they've been blowing teams out.
How many years is this for the Bloomfield Christmas tournament?
Over 60. I think the Bloomfield Christmas tournament started back in the 1950s.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very big deal down here in Southeast Missouri, and if you are in the area and you like high school basketball, let me just give you some advice. Either get there real early or bring your walking shoes, because one of the things about these small town schools, there's not a lot of parking around the gym, so good luck with that.
Exactly. And there's a lot of good teams in that tournament besides Puxico. Puxico's the top seed and the favorite. But East Prairie's coming back. East Prairie won it last year.
Doniphan will be there, East Carter.
Yeah, East Carter's won that tournament in the past. Doniphan's won that tournament in the past. I think one of the truly interesting games in that tournament is going to be the second game of the day Thursday, when Twin Rivers and Richland play in the 8-9 game. Richland's a returning Class 1 state quarterfinalist. Twin Rivers has had some good stuff. Richland might be a little bit underseeded at that tournament. They got beat by Bell City a couple of weeks back at the Oran tournament, which was something of an upset. But Richland's made some noise since then. They beat Dexter, who I believe is the 5 seed in that tournament. That's a pretty impressive win. So that Twin Rivers Richland game could be interesting, and whoever wins that game is probably going to be seeing Puxico in the second round, and that's going to be a dandy matchup, because Twin Rivers and Puxico are together in the Ozark Foothills Conference, and Richland and Puxico are together in the Stoddard County Activities Association. So that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, and the best thing about this for me, I will be covering on Thursday on the 26th, and then I will have the privilege of covering the last evening of the Bloomfield tournament on Monday the 30th. So I'll get to see the cream of the crop in those third place and championship games.
which is always fun. And we cannot talk about holiday tournaments without talking about the Poplar Bluff Showdown.
Who is slated to attend? Is it going to be? It's pretty much the same teams that were there last year, isn't it?
I think there's a few changes. I just got an email from Brian Rosner this morning. Of course, Brian was the former longtime Daily American Republic sports editor who does a lot of stuff with the high school team now. I think he's their scorekeeper, taking the seat of the legendary late great Tom Hoover. Poplar Bluff's they are playing Urbana, Illinois, which is, of course, right up there in the heart of Fighting Illini country.
Right. They were there last year.
McCracken County's back from over around Paducah.
Yes.
We have two Arkansas teams in that tournament. Maumelle, Arkansas, which is, the Little Rock area.
I think they're new, maybe.
Yeah, a bit of wild trivia about Maumelle. They are the replacement high school in the Pulaski County School District for Oak Grove High School, which was the alma mater of, legendary running back Darren McFadden.
Interesting. Maumelle sounds like something that somebody would call their grandma down in Arkansas. Maumelle, you make any cookies for me today? Sorry, Kyle. We've got to get our digs in on Arkansas while you're there.
Ain't no harm. And on the side, my Red Wolves are finally next year playing Arkansas in football.
Oh, that ought to be fun. Is that going to be in Jonesboro?
No, it'll be in Fayetteville. I imagine maybe down the road we can get that, or at War Memorial.
It needs to be at War Memorial, for Pete's sake.
A change in athletic director at Arkansas finally decided, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's about dad burn time. Getting back to the showdown, Izard County, Arkansas, which is a small school in North Arkansas, but is supposed to be really good. They're joining the showdown this year. Trinity Christian out of, I believe, Jackson, Tennessee is coming in. And last but not least, we have the return of the Vashon Wolverines from St. Louis.
Oh boy!
Oh my Lord!
Yeah. There's, if you're not a longtime Poplar Bluff sports fan, back in the day, Vashon went undefeated during the regular season, and they were everybody's media darling up in St. Louis, slated to win the Class 5 basketball championship until they ran into a little couple of people that we know down here in Poplar Bluff, Ben Hansbrough and his big brother, Tyler Hansbrough. And the funny thing about that is that Fox Sports Midwest had pre-recorded a documentary on Vashon's perfect season. And the Mules went into that state championship game and just destroyed them. I mean, it was not competitive from about halfway the first quarter. And I remember in the second half, Tyler went down and just did a tomahawk dunk on top of somebody. It was just, and it's like everyone was just left standing with their jaws open with egg on their face because Poplar Bluff, we were the defending state champs that year because Tyler had led the team to the state championship the year before, and everybody just dismissed them. And that is my favorite story about high school basketball.
And a bit of fun trivia. Kyle went to high school with Tyler and Ben. In fact, Kyle, I believe you graduated with Ben, right?
Yeah, I did. And he went on to Mississippi State, then transferred to Notre Dame, and he was a big-time point guard there. And, last I saw Tyler legitimately was after his rookie year. Swear on everything, and this is as small town of America stories you get. Run into a rookie NBA power forward at Walmart.
Of course.
While in the booth. And he came up to me and go, "Hey, big man, long time no see." He remembered me and his dad. Dr. Gene did surgery on my arm when I broke it in 7th grade. And
mine too.
Tyler and I used to hang out, and he used to look at my East Bay magazine and order shoes out of it because I'd bring him to school.
Cool.
Good dude. Real good dude.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, we're actually recording this not in our usual location at the Poplar Bluff Public Library, but here on the campus of Three Rivers College. So tell us how the Raiders have been doing over the past week or so.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that in just a minute, but I will add that we are also having a new team in the showdown this year, Kansas City Staley, which is something for everybody to be excited about. This is going to be a really good tournament. I am probably going to be at the Showdown quite a bit next week, so I get to experience that too. That's a tournament I've got to go to a few times over the years and have always enjoyed it.
And what's really fun about the Poplar Bluff Showdown is that you get these interstate games. You know, you've got teams from a lot of different states rather than just, so that gives it a different flavor than these other tournaments, which, as we've already said, are feature these regional rivalries. I cannot say that word. Rivalry. That's the last time I'll say it.
Oh, you're good. But as you mentioned, the Raiders and Lady Raiders, I'm going to start off with the Lady Raiders. They got two absolutely impressive wins last weekend. Major kudos to Alex Wiggs and his Lady Raiders. They went down to the heart of Crimson Tide country in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, won a rematch with nationally ranked Shelton State. You know, they had beat Shelton State up here last month, but they went down to Tuscaloosa and won at Shelton State by 1 point.
Nice.
Last Saturday. And then on Sunday, they played undefeated and nationally ranked Pearl River and absolutely dominated them. They won by 10 points and led by a lot more than that. Pearl River rallied in the fourth to get it close, but the Lady Raiders held serve and ended up getting a double-digit win over a team that had not lost all year.
It looks like, at least at this point in the season, that Coach Alex Wiggs' plan to have a really tough schedule early on in the season is paying dividends for the Lady Raiders.
I would say it definitely is. The Lady Raiders' only two losses are to nationally ranked Wabash Valley and on the road at Trinity Valley down in Athens, Texas. Speaking of Wabash Valley, we are playing them at their home gym in Mount Carmel, Illinois, 2 weeks from tomorrow. That's going to be a heck of a game. It's a 4-hour drive, but if you can make that drive, that would be a good one to watch. And I got a quick bit of aside trivia for you. Wabash Valley's home gym is named the Spencer Sports Center, and that's got some Poplar Bluff ties because it's named after Dr. Spencer, who was the interim president at Three Rivers in 1997 after Dr. Port left and before Dr. Cooper came in. And the other cool thing is that Dr. Spencer's sister is former legendary Poplar Bluff Junior High Spanish teacher and art teacher Laura Clark.
Yeah, very interesting. We would be here for another hour if I started talking about all of the Three Rivers trivia because, you know, I've been here at the college for 2 centuries now. My career spans 2 centuries, the 20th and the 21st. Mike, unfortunately, the Raiders have not fared as well as their lady counterparts in the past few games, have they?
December has not been a kind month to the Raiders. We have been dealing with some injuries. We are missing starting guard Deuce Alexander. We've also been missing freshman defensive standout forward Alan Stoddard. That's made a big difference. Stoddard and Deuce are not stat stuffers, but they do a lot of things on the defensive end. Deuce is a good ball handler. We've really missed that. One of the really notable stats this year, the Raiders are 8-1 when Stoddard plays and 2-5 when he doesn't. Of those 5 losses, 2 of them were either in overtime or 1-possession losses, and the third one was by 8 points. So it's hard for me to look at that and say, if we had had Stoddard, we wouldn't have won. I think if we had had him, we win those games.
Well, let me get it back to the Minnesota Vikings. The 2 games that they lost to Detroit and the Rams, of course, that was a very short week because they lost to Detroit on a Sunday and then they had to play at Los Angeles on a Thursday. But in both of those games, their middle linebacker, the guy who runs their defense, Blake Cashman, was out with turf toe in both of those games. And when you have a catalyst, either on offense or defense, who's not able to play, especially someone like you said, point guard Deuce Alexander or the other player who you mentioned who's a defensive stopper, especially on the defense, when your linchpin on defense is missing, it kind of throws the entire chemistry off in a really significant way. So I don't think we should discount either of those injuries. Do you have any idea how long they'll be out?
Not sure. I think if I had to guess, there's a pretty good chance they will both be healthy when we get back from the Christmas break, which they'll be back before that, but their first game will be 3 weeks from tomorrow against West Plains on January 11th, which is also my 51st birthday. Oh. So that's kind of fun. But
I really have a problem with the fact that one of my students in college is now over 50 years old.
Well, I was one of your first students, Mark. Hey, guys, fun trivia. Mark's first class as a Three Rivers instructor was January 1998, teaching English literature since 1798. It was a Thursday night class, and I signed up and took it. So I was one of Mark's very first students. That's how we met.
Yeah, and Mike has pretty much an eidetic memory, so he could probably remind me what we studied, because I certainly don't remember.
Well, I could talk about that, but that's not really on the sports topic.
Yeah,
but
that's
it was
true.
pretty cool. I will say that Mark made English literature very interesting, and you got to be pretty good to make Wordsworth and Coleridge interesting to a sports fan.
Well, thank you for that.
But getting back to the Raiders, Coach Kirby has went as far as describing Alan Stoddard, the player we were talking about, as the Raiders' enforcer. So that's a big loss. We have missed him like crazy. I think that's one reason that we got frankly embarrassed by Jones College out of Mississippi last Friday. They're the number 12 team in the country. They're very good. They went to the national tournament last year. They've got a really good chance to go back this year. And they came into the Leibel Family Sports Complex and absolutely tub thumped us. There's no other way to say it. They had a 20-point lead a third of the way through the game. They were up 24 points at half, won by 27. I mean, they literally gave the Raiders a lump of coal in their stockings.
Well, that happens to almost every team. It's very rare. You don't see many basketball teams at any level that don't have a loss that they would just rather forget. Even the blue chip programs in the NCAA, they will, for whatever reason, just have a stinker. They'll lose. They'll lose a bad game to a team that they should have beaten, or they'll, like you said, get thumped by another team. I think it's still too early in the season to push the panic button. It's a very long season in the community college ranks, and the way the playoff system works is the regular season gives you a seed for your region tournament. But you can be the bottom seed in the region tournament. And if you can figure out a way to win that tournament, then you're going to nationals.
Mark, you just took the words right out of my mouth. And we have seen that in Raiders history. I remember back about, 9-10 years ago, the Raiders entered the region tournament as the number one seed after having a great regular season, and faced a fourth-seeded Moberly team that had really struggled in the regular season. Moberly got hot and not only beat us and knocked us out of having a shot at the national tournament, Moberly went on to win that region tournament as a 4-seed, and I don't think anybody gave them a snowball's chance in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, the basketball season starts in December. It ends in March. So let's be patient and see how the Raiders are able to, maybe this little bit of adversity will be just the thing to forge their strength as the season moves on.
I think there's a good chance of that. I think we got a really good chance to get healthy over the break. I think maybe getting beat as bad as we did by Jones could build a little fire under us, give us a little incentive. I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to do second half. In the second half, we haven't even played a region game yet. We're playing all 12 of our region games in January and February and I think early March. So, the good part of the season is only just now getting started. I will give an interesting note. Speaking of our other region opponents, Jones went up to Mineral Area the next afternoon and beat Mineral Area by 19 points on their home floor. So that...
It might have more to do with who Jones is than who we are.
I think that's a very good possibility. And the other thing is, it's kind of interesting, that same day, Moberly played undefeated, nationally ranked Southeastern Iowa and put a 31-point beatdown on the Blackhawks. And a lot of people saw that score, and it's like, wow, it's going to be hard to stop that Moberly team from winning yet another region title, and it could be. But I sat down yesterday and looked at that box score, and I found out Southeastern Iowa was missing their starting point guard, who is one of their very best players, who's a really good ball handler, a good defender, and it's also the same kid that hit the game-winning shot when they played us to hand us our first loss. So that was a big loss for that Southeastern Iowa team. So I've got to put a little bit of an asterisk by that win over Moberly. I mean, not to say that Moberly isn't good. Pat Smith is, if not the best coach in Region 16, right up there. He knows how he has turned that Moberly program into an absolute Region 16 juggernaut. But at the same time, it's a little early to say, well, he's got it in the bag.
Yep. Well, we will continue to watch on the progress of our Three Rivers basketball teams. As Mike mentioned at the top of the show, this is our last podcast before Christmas, and so I would like to close out our show with a little feature called All I Want for Christmas.
Yes.
So while Mike and Kyle are thinking about this, I'll go first because mine doesn't take any imagination. All I want for Christmas is for the Vikings to win just one Super Bowl before I die. That's it, just one. Mike, what about you?
I want the Titans to finally win the Super Bowl, but right now I would settle for us getting a permanent starting quarterback worked out.
Yes. You need a quarterback, definitely.
I wouldn't say Will Levis's time in Nashville is completely dead, although a lot of people would say that. But it's not because Levis is a great quarterback. It's basically because they don't really have any good alternatives. We may be stuck with this guy, so I'm still kind of rooting for him to get it right, because maybe if things go really good and we get a high enough draft pick, maybe we could get a guy like Travis Hunter next year.
Yeah, or maybe you could sign Brock Purdy out of free agency, or
that's a possibility.
Or Kirk Cousins.
You are evil. You are evil.
Kirk Coach Shane's in Nashville. Kirk was dripping.
Kyle, what about you? What do you want for Christmas?
Oh, there's a lot I love, but this one is not for any of my teams. But I have a very, very soft heart for the Buffalo Bills. I want the Buffalo Bills to win a Super Bowl while Marv Levy and Jim Kelly are still here.
Oh, that would be great. And I'll tell you, if the Vikings...
After watching their four falls of Buffalo, 30 for 30, and also seeing how Thurman Thomas couldn't even stomach to watch that anymore. That means everything to those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that is something that Vikings fans have in common with Bills fans is that 0-4 record in the Super Bowl. So obviously I will be pulling for the Vikings for as long as they're in the playoffs, but if they do fall before the final game, I will be all in with you for Buffalo.
I agree.
All right, well, that's our show. I'd like to wish everyone out there a very Merry Christmas, and we will be back after Christmas Day for a recap on all of the exciting action this weekend, including that first round of college football playoff matchups. So, on behalf of the Sports Desk, I'm Mark Sanders.
Kyle
Robbins, y'all.
And I'm Mike Bueller, and you have been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.